So we're going to talk a little bit about simplifying cybersecurity. Cybersecurity can seem somewhat overwhelming with a number of new threats every day. So we're going to talk about how you might simplify it. Our mission at ThreatLocker is to change the paradigm of endpoint security from default allow to default deny. Because for 20 years, cybersecurity has been allow everything except what we know to be bad. That's really hard when you have to constantly keep up with these evolving threats. So if you turn that around to default deny, it makes everything much easier. Future of endpoint security, I mean, I don't need to tell you guys this, but future of endpoint security is zero trust. We're going to talk a little bit about allowlisting, blocking by default. We're going to talk a little bit about ringfencing. So ringfencing, controlling what can run, restricting what programs can do so they can't be weaponized. And we talk a little bit about detection. Detection is important, but we see it as complementary to controls. 11 seconds. We all know how big this problem is, but realistically, an organization or a business worldwide is hit every 11 seconds by ransomware or a breach. Estimated costs of cybercrime, $650 billion this year, and it's only accelerating. It is not slowing down. So from an application perspective, an allowlisting perspective, what's important, first of all, is knowing what's running in your environment. I mean, can anybody here really truly, honestly say they know every piece of software that's running on every one of their machines? I would be extremely skeptical of that, but knowing what's running is the first part of the battle. Then blocking untrusted. Untrusted means everything that isn't explicitly allowed. It doesn't just mean malware. It does mean malware, but it also means other programs, other software that can be misused. I mean, realistically, everything that runs on your computers increases your attack surface. And everything that you don't allow run on your computers reduces your attack surface. So knowing what's running means knowing, for example, what countries software is made in, what it does, what its function is. I mean, 7-zip is an interesting example. Apart from the fact that it's made in Russia, it also has all of the characteristics of ransomware. It can encrypt data, it can transmit data, and it can delete data. I mean, realistically, that's all you need as a bad actor if you get into an environment, and it's not going to trip up traditional defenses like EDRs. So blocking untrusted software, as I said, doesn't just mean blocking malware. It doesn't just mean blocking ransomware. It also means blocking things like PuTTY. PuTTY is we have seen PuTTY being used for data exfiltration in ransomware attacks. Orclone is the data exfiltration tool of choice for ransomware gangs, much like AnyDesk is the remote access tool of choice. Now, what do those three pieces of software have in common? None of them are inherently bad. They're not malware. They're not going to trip up, as I said, traditional defenses like EDRs or antiviruses. Can they be misused? Absolutely. They are misused. Preventing application interaction, so stopping one program from interacting with another, is really important. You don't want Office to be able to call PowerShell, but somebody in their infinite knowledge and wisdom in Microsoft decided one day it would be a great idea to allow Office to talk to PowerShell. And that's where a lot of these attacks start. But also preventing what files programs have access to. So you may need to run PowerShell in your environment, but does it need to access every piece of information that you store? Absolutely not. Does it need to access any information that you store? Probably not. So deny by default. Block it from accessing those things it doesn't need to access, which generally speaking for something like PowerShell means everything. But also controlling network access, where on the internet things can access. One of the reasons that the SolarWinds attack was able to happen was that people implicitly trusted the SolarWinds agent. Because of that implicit trust, that SolarWinds or those SolarWinds agents were able to reach out to third-party CNC servers on the internet. Just because something needs to run in your environment does not mean you need to implicitly trust it. One of the tenets of zero trust is remove implicit trust and add explicit trust. From a network perspective, I'm not going to get too much into this. You do want to be able to see everything that's happening network-wise within your environment. But things like SMB you should block by default and permit by exception. Remote encryption is a huge problem. As you can see there, Microsoft's Digital Defense Report last year, 70% of successful attacks involved remote encryption. That is something that is unprotected on a network, encrypting data on something that is protected. So the way to stop that is by only allowing trusted devices connect to things like RDP. Block outbound network traffic on servers. Again, seems pretty logical, but it's something that's not done in a lot of environments. Block all inbound traffic to workstations, laptops, endpoints, basically. I mean, the days of people living behind firewalls where you could keep them safe are gone. People work at events like this, they work in Starbucks. You want to be equally protected wherever they might be. Filtering web content. Again, pretty low-hanging fruit. Blocking people from accessing websites that you don't want them to be able to access. Auditing is super important. Seeing what accesses what, down to the level of not only user, but also program. So what programs are accessing what data is super important. So having a full, visible, usable audit is really important. Obviously, this has been spoken about, take away administrator rights. I mean, it's a good idea. It's not going to stop ransomware. It's not going to solve the problem of ransomware, but it is good practice. But you need to do it without friction. So what we suggest is that you take away those local admin rights and you give them back selectively for individual programs. So if you have devs that need to run Visual Studio with elevated permission, then you can set Visual Studio to be elevatable. Patching, really important. We had a conversation with a guy once upon a time, and he told us that he didn't patch his servers. And the reason he didn't patch his servers was because if they ain't broke, don't fix it. I got news for you, buddy. They are broke. That is why patches are available. So patch your things is super important. Don't forget about portable applications as well. So it's not just software that's installed on machines. You might have a vulnerable version of a portable application sitting in your downloads folder. It still needs patching. Detection and response. So as I said, we see detection and response as important but complementary to controls. Controls are what's going to keep you safe. But detection, you want to know when things are happening. So things like mass change or exfiltration. I mean, the example we use is our CFO, Ross, really nice guy, typically will access maybe 5 or 10 files of a morning. Now, if Ross suddenly starts accessing 200 or 2,000 files from his computer, either two things are happening. Ross has either had way too much coffee or something bad is happening. So being able to detect and respond to those events quickly is super important. And obviously manage detection and response. It doesn't matter how good your EDR is, how good your detection tools are. If somebody isn't watching those tools 24/7, 365, they are as good as useless. You might as well throw them in the bin because the bad guys are not working 9 to 5, your time zone. They're working in the middle of the night. So what ThreatLocker does is it enables you to deliver seamless technology to your users while blocking what is not needed, including cyber attacks. The platform is extensive. I've just mentioned small parts of it here. So allowlisting, ring-fencing, elevation, storage control, network control. You can see it all there. I don't need to read it all out, but it is an extensive platform based on the principles of zero trust. Mentioned very briefly, we've introduced defense against configurations. So it shows you misconfigurations, 150 checks done on every single machine, every single day, automatically reports back, gives you beautiful charts to tell you where you have problems. It's a free service, basically. It's not an additional charge for customers. Thank you very much for your attention. At the risk of sounding like every YouTuber my kids watch, we do have a YouTube channel where you can see some of the webinars we've done, including this one, where we accidentally crashed a drone into the CEO's office. If you're interested in what I've had to say, book a demo or speak to my colleagues at the booth. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.